Hi, this is Bethany, and today I'm speaking with our author, Tonya Crombie. And Tonya is the author of Stop Worrying About Your Anxious Child: How to Manage Your Child's Anxiety So You Can Finally Relax. Hi, Tonya. Thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great, Bethany. Thanks so much for having this conversation. There's nothing I like more than talking about this book.
Oh, amazing. My pleasure. We're so excited to dive into learning more about you and why you wrote this book, and the people that may find valuable information and insight into this topic. So could you first maybe give us a little bit of an overview as far as who you are as the author of this book?
Yeah. So I don't know if you said this, but a lot of times when people introduce me, they introduce me as Dr. Tonya Crombie because I do have a PhD in psychology. And what that means is not that I am like a genius. It means that I do love school. And I went to school for a really long time. Um, in addition to having my doctorate in psychology, I also have a certification in life coaching. So I am a doctor and a life coach. And um, the most important qualification I have for writing this book is that I am a mother and I am the parent of an anxious child. And so that is really my top qualification and for writing this book.
Oh, amazing. So obviously the title is a little bit self-explanatory, but could you just tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write the book? And if you could just dive a little bit into your journey and why you decided to share this story and your journey with others.
Well, as I said, I am a parent of an anxious child. And when my child was struggling, what I really wanted to find was a book, not just by somebody who knew a lot about anxiety, but I wanted a book by somebody who had been there, who had actually had those moments as a parent when you are so overwhelmed. And I thought that my story, as someone who has all this education and training, and still I found myself completely overwhelmed, completely confused about what to do, how to help. I was desperate to help my child, and yet I didn't know what to do either. And so I want to share that. I want people to who are feeling that same feeling to know, hey, it's normal. Even people who went to school for this still feel that way. And I wanted to share that there's a way out because I did figure out a way to the other side of that feeling. So that's what inspired me to write the book, and that's what the book is really about.
Wow, wow. So, you've got, so much of this education to kind of help qualify you, but you also have lived this journey yourself, and you offer, so much practical and insight into, both the more educational side, but as well as the personal side through this process. And I feel like there's been so many families that have faced unusual situations over the recent events that have happened in our world. And so there's some interesting dynamics that maybe at play in a lot of homes with parents that are spending maybe more time with their children than ever before, and maybe really seeking some resources on how to help, especially if their child deals with something like anxiety that could be heightened in some of the circumstances that have been arising. If you could kind of identify, if somebody might be on the fence about wanting to know if their child might be having anxiety, or if they think that this might be a resource that could be helpful for them, could you talk really about who should read your book and who's going to find the most value in the wisdom that you share?
Well, if you are sitting listening to this and thinking, I wonder if my child is struggling with anxiety, the way that I like to break it down very simply for parents is that anxiety in children in particular is not just fearfulness. I think we all assume anxiety is like, oh, I'm so afraid. And that's not really what anxiety looks like in probably the majority of our kids. It's easy to think of anxiety, and when we break it into the fight, flight, or freeze. And when we think about fighting, sometimes it's our kids who are really angry, who are throwing temper tantrums, who are refusing to do things. That can be anxiety. Flight means running away. So literally, sometimes the kids who are hiding, running away, that can be anxiety. But flight can also mean more of a figurative anxiety, which is things like escaping into video games, escaping into television, escaping into things, because that's a form of running away. And then freeze is that, literal freeze in place. I can't move. I don't know what to do. And figurative freezing, which is things like being indecisive, asking a lot of questions that are obvious that they know the answer to, but it's like their brain is not processing. And literally, that is what is happening. Their brain isn't processing because they're so anxious they can't think. What do you want for snack? I don't know. That sort of thing can be a sign of anxiety. So if you're thinking there's some weird behaviors, those are the types of weird behaviors that might indicate that your child might be having some issues with anxiety. And if you are thinking those, my book's a perfect book for you. And if you know for sure that your child is struggling with anxiety, the feedback I've gotten from early readers is that it takes about 2 hours to read from cover to cover, because if you are struggling and you have a child who's anxious, you don't have time to spend weeks and weeks. You can read it quickly. It's got some tools you can use right away. And it's really written for, I know, because I have been there. It's written for people just like me who didn't have time to read a textbook,
Oh, absolutely. I was actually going to ask if you happen to have a copy, because that's one of my favorite things about it, because, parents are so busy. Oh, I love that so much. And the cover is so lovely there. And it is a very approachable read for somebody that might be thinking, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to read this book on top of everything else that I need to do this week or today? So, wow. So I think that was such useful and helpful information as far as how somebody might be able to identify, especially if it's a child that may not be able to put into words exactly these things that they're feeling. So I think that's really, really helpful how you broke that down. Thank you so much. So one more question for you. If a parent is struggling to help their anxious child, what is one quick tip that you would offer to help them?
So, of course, as we said, go get my book is one quick tip. But if you're watching this, you don't have time to go get the book right away. The thing that we always have as parents, as our children, as human beings, we always have access to our breath. And there's a reason why, all the great religions talk about breath and breathing. There's a reason why there are so many sayings, just common sayings about breath, like let's all take a breath, or that left me breathless. I mean, breath is key to our existence, our experience, and it is key to just kind of disconnecting that little circuitry that's going haywire in our bodies when we're feeling anxious. So I would say to a parent whose child is struggling with anxiety, your first instinct as a parent is the same instinct as on that airplane when you experience the drop in cabin pressure. Your instinct is to put the air mask on your child. And what do they tell you on every single flight you've ever taken? Put the air mask on yourself. So before you even try to start talking your child through a technique to take a deep breath or count to 10, those things that we've heard over and over, the first thing to do is to do it yourself. Take those deep breaths, because what happens when a child is struggling with anxiety, again, been there, done this, done it wrong, probably more than I want to admit, but the first thing that happens is you start to panic. your child is struggling and you start to, your breath gets shallow and fast. You start to feel anxiety and you can't react in the best way when that happens. So the first step is take some of those long, deep, slow, heavy breaths, then encourage your child to do the same. That's, I mean, there's a lot of other techniques I could share, but if you want one simple one, that's my one simple go-to always.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that breathing is so crucial. And I love how you broke that down. Like you really need to kind of get that under control yourself first before you can really help your child navigate that moment. So wow, I feel like there's so many things I could ask you and so much insight that somebody has to glean from your experiences. So if somebody wants to learn more about you or about the book or find a way to work with you, what's the best way for them to get connected with you?
The best way is just to go check out my website. It is guidanceforthefuture.com. And that's all one word. There's no numbers. It's all just guidanceforthefuture.com. There's information about the book on my website. There's information about the way that I work with parents and help parents. There's information about me. There's links to some videos. So yeah, I would love to just go check it out. And you can also find me on Facebook.
Amazing. Well, Tonya, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing some wisdom with us. And congratulations on the launch of your new book.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Thanks to Morgan James.